let's get back to the controversial dimension of this plan to pass the ownership, as it were, of public housing to this nonprofit corporation as a way to take advantage of the federal funds that can then come in to maintain and improve the projects, public projects. A lot of New Yorkers see this as really just a step towards privatization and passing public housing into the hands of private developers.
That's a fair concern, and we've heard it mainly from our own clients, our own residents of public housing. I relish and welcome the opportunity on your show to try to clarify that a little bit, that these agreements that we've made are pretty much airtight, that from the outside, the properties look the same. The managers that were there prior to the turnover are the same managers that are there today. The union workers that work on the site that were there prior to this transition are there today. That on the surface, there is no, you can't see any difference between what was New York City Housing Authority managed property and this property.
But in all due respect, that's now. What about 5 years down the road?
Oh, actually, it's the way that we've set up the deal, it's in perpetuity. The way the deal is set up, every year that we receive any federal dollars for managing that property, it adds another year to a 40-year commitment. So right off the top, we have a 40-year commitment, and next year, for example, the moment we receive our operating dollars to manage that site, we actually add another year to that 40. So there really is embedded in the system, mainly through financial incentives, and a way of preserving it as to be managed for the benefit of the low-income folks, really into perpetuity.
I think you would have to be in New York a little bit longer to perhaps understand that a lot of the people that heard you say that aren't going to believe you. So you want to say something to them?
Oh, yeah. Well, New Yorkers, the New York City Housing Authority is very much committed to preserving and providing the best service we can for the benefit of the low-income folks that live in town, the families that are in town. And this particular deal, the 21,000 units that were part of this preservation exercise, and we were intentional in our term of calling it preservation. The federalizing, meaning bringing federal dollars onto this, was a way of actually preserving it. To New Yorkers, I'm saying to you as a relative newcomer here, had we not done this, we would not have had the dollars to keep these properties up, and that the real jeopardy was losing these properties to deferred maintenance, not to private sector ownership.
Isn't it also true, though, again, you're not responsible for what's gone on for 25, 30 years before you, but that the Public Housing Authority, NYCHA, I think as you call it for short, has perennially operated at a deficit. And the deficit seems to grow, and at one point I thought it was pretty large in this recent period of time, over 75 million. Was that the figure? I'm not sure.
Yeah, unfortunately it is. There's actually 150 million.
150 million. Okay, twice as much. What is being done to change that so that there isn't this constant roulette wheel every year about are we going to have enough money and who do we got to cut and how many places do we have to pull strings and so on and so forth?
Well, the deal, as we were just talking about it, has actually provided over half of the dollars we need to cut into the structural deficit. That was a major part.
The structural deficit meaning in the way the system was set up, that was almost built in.
It was built in that we would have to rob Peter to pay Paul to keep these buildings up. And so when you look at a structural deficit, by actually receiving dollars that we frankly deserve to have had but never got before, it now immediately cuts into the shortfall. How we're looking to bridge the remainder of the gap is through a variety of measures, beginning with making sure that we are efficient as we possibly can, making sure that our administrative offices are lean and mean and productive, and that our focus is on resources to the field. But it also means looking at being creative the way that this particular deal was, to work with the private sector without jeopardizing or selling off or privatizing our housing, but to look at ways.
Why would the private sector be interested? What's in it for them?
Well, I think that the Public Housing Authority is, besides being the largest in the country, for example, has the second largest amount of green space, second only to Central Park. That green space includes spaces like parking lots or other areas that
Common areas
common
for
areas, et
walking
cetera.
and benches and trees, yes.
And one of the initiatives that we're looking at very seriously now is adopting some of, again, back to my architecture hat, some of the urban design initiatives that say that healthy communities have reintroduction of the street grids. Right now, the New York City Housing Authority properties, the towers and the park properties, in many ways are very large and actually are separated from the larger street grid. By cutting streets through and by looking at retail and housing opportunities on top of these newly cut streets really provides a very creative way of providing more income and providing more housing, and as importantly, providing more community resources like schools and community centers and other things that we'll be looking to develop on our sites. So that's one area we're looking at to bridge some of the gap, is to be more entrepreneurial with our real estate.
Property, yeah.
The other is to look at that we have one of the largest, it's over $70 million budget that goes toward community centers and community support, and we're very, very proud of it.